Okay, so about, I don't know, a few days ago, I put up a post on the JRPG subreddit to get some of your questions about Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. I also put a post up on Twitter to get some more questions. There are about 32 to get through. I had to do a lot of testing in some cases, so there is no time to lose. Let's just jump straight in. First question from Zero Zest. Can you change between the remastered and original versions of the soundtrack for the cutscenes? So for those who don't know, in the Definitive Edition, you can change between a rearranged and remastered soundtrack or the original soundtrack for both field music and battle music, but there is no option for cutscenes. So do the cutscenes play rearranged and remastered soundtracks if you have field music or battle music selected, or not? And basically, cutscene music just appears to be cutscene music. I tested a lot of different cutscenes, and no matter which options I had selected, they seemed to just be the same music. I don't think this is a problem because the old soundtrack, the original soundtrack, it's not bad. It's not like MIDI level tracks or anything like that, so it doesn't feel out of place. I believe cutscene music is just cutscene music, and they left the rearranging and remastering to full tracks that are actual tracks. I think they said 90 or 92 tracks have been redone, so cutscene music just appears to be cutscene music. Planetarial. Can you change the weather in addition to time now? No, you can only change the time. Can you change the subtitles like font and size? I don't believe you can. I haven't found an option for it, so I think they're just stuck at what they're stuck at. Does the game have a similar system like XP2 where share XP is put into a pool, you can access it ends, so you don't possibly overlevel? There is not a system exactly like that in the game. If there is another system, I can't really talk about it at the moment. Is there a custom difficulty like what the XP2 DLC had? Again, I cannot confirm or deny at this stage, even if there was something like that. Shahaha. Is there any rebalancing of the battle system? One of the big complaints about the original was how useless Sharla was. So this is one that took a fair amount of testing, and I can't really answer it definitively. I don't think there's been a major shift or rebalance in the original's battle system, but I have found Sharla to be a very effective healer, and Melia, I don't think she's really any more effective than she was in the original, but I think that's just the way their AI works. Sharla's AI prioritizes healing, and she's quite good at it just in the party. Melia's AI appears to be prioritizing buffing rather than using her elemental charges to actually attack, which, yeah, I mean, it's not the most effective when you're having her controlled by the AI, but I think that's just what their priorities are. So there might have been some minor tweaks here and there, maybe to make them more usable. I've found Sharla to be very usable. Melia doesn't appear to be... I think she's usable at least. Chem116. How does the handheld resolution hold up? Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Torna was pretty rough when it came to resolution in handheld, constant dips to 386p. I have not found any dips that low for Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. The resolution in general, both in docked and handheld, is vastly improved over Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Torna. I don't think I've even seen a dip below or even to 480p. I could be wrong, but handheld resolution holds up pretty well. I should have some off-screen video of me playing in handheld mode in several different areas. The areas that I found to be sort of most problematic, the busiest and areas where the most effects have to be rendered, and I don't see any massive dips. So the engine has been significantly improved for Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. I don't think you'll have too much of an issue playing all in handheld mode. Obviously, I can't 100% say there's definitely no dips that low in handheld mode because this is an absolutely massive game and I haven't checked every square inch of it, but in general, the resolution is much better than Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Torna. Kaidos. I'm really looking to start a new RPG soon. I tried XC2 a while back and wasn't a huge fan. While I was interested in the story and the combat, the UI and map in the game made it difficult to see where I needed to travel to and how different items and bonuses worked. Is the UI simpler and is it easier to keep up with the different RPG mechanics in this game? Also, how does it run in handheld mode? So we've covered the handheld mode part, but in terms of the UI and the map and tracking things, the Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition UI has been totally redone over the original. Some things are the same, but they've had, like a coat of paint over them, but there are a lot of new UI elements that make it much easier to track things like quests and collectibles. The quest markers work pretty well. There's like one area which I talked about in my preview, which is Frontier Village. It's kind of tricky to keep track of quests there because there are so many levels. There are like 11 different levels, and you can only sort of see quest markers for the level that you're currently checking. You can go up and down on the map, but yeah, it's just a little bit tricky there. But everywhere else, it works very effectively. It's quite easy to track quests. And in combat can get a little bit busy, but the UI, I think the UI improvements have made combat a lot more fun, specifically for me, because I wasn't a huge fan of the combat in the original Xenoblade Chronicles. And for some reason this time around I'm having a lot more fun with it. So I would say, even if you found XC2 difficult to sort of figure out in terms of UI and map, I would say give Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition a try. It works really well. Yeshua, can you just do a side-by-side before and after comparison of how the UI works for equipping and comparing items? I had a lot of trouble in the first one figuring out which armor to wear. The comparison tool was clunky and it factored out. So I can't do a side-by-side, but I can give you some good news in this one. The comparison tool, when you're checking, so this should be up on the screen now, you can actually disable the gem bonuses, so you're just looking at the comparison between the two types of gear that you're looking at. And also, when you are switching gear, you can actually choose to just carry over your gems that you currently have into the new piece of gear by pressing start and selecting pressing the plus button, you can carry over the gems. So that kind of thing is a lot more streamlined. It's a lot easier to figure out. Moogle Kupo Cake. Is gem management made easier, especially when you have a lot of them? Do gems carry over when you equip a new weapon? So as I just mentioned before, you can carry your gems over into a new weapon or a new piece of gear. That is an option that's just straight in the UI now. Gem management is, I wouldn't say easier. I mean, there are a lot of different ways to sort them, but and they're split into their ranks, like you got rank 1, level 2, level 3s, level 4s, and etc. But when you have a lot of them, it does tend to get a little bit hard to keep track of. A virtual star. Without spoiling Future Connected, does it add any dimension to the standard Xenoblade story, or does it tie into the other Xenoblade games or even the other Xeno games somehow? Does it add any dimension? I mean, it definitely adds a dimension because it is like literally a continuation of the original Xenoblade story, the original Xenoblade Chronicles story, and therefore sort of the series. I can't really talk about anything more, but I mean, it's called Future Connected for a reason, right? And Takahashi has only recently said that it's sort of Future Connected sort of both means the future of Xenoblade Chronicles and the series as a whole. Handwash Page. In terms of voices in the main game, have you noticed any addition or re-recording of lines, or are they the exact same voice lines used in the original? I don't think there have been any re-recordings. The voices from the original, the quality of them is solid. So I have noticed, like, if you go back and play Barton Kaitos on the GameCube, you'll notice that, like, you can actually sort of hear there's like a background noise. It wasn't like a professional soundproof booth or a professional soundproof booth or anything like that for Barton Kaitos, and that's just not the situation here. Like the voices sound like they could have been recorded yesterday, so I don't think they really needed to re-record any of the lines. Again, I can't 100% confirm or deny whether any of them have been, or there've been tweaks or anything like that. I haven't noticed any myself. Are side quests easier in regards to waypoints and such? Yeah, side quests, the whole questing system is vastly improved over the original. So you now have a whole quest log, you have waypoints, you can set markers for specific quests, you can set map markers. It's so much easier to keep track of them. Like, you no longer have to play this game with a wiki guide open right next to you to make sure you get all the quests, because they're so much easier to keep track of. MSG from side 3, does it include JP voice or even downloadable? Thanks. Yes, it does, straight out of the box. It's included, so you can choose between English voices or Japanese voices. Sheer Colds, are you allowed to talk about expert mode, and if so, could you please go into detail about how it works? How does it function compared to Xenoblade Chronicles 2's in-system? So I think what you're referring to is a possible leak or something about that, about an expert mode. Even if there was one, I wouldn't be allowed to talk about it or confirm that it exists or that it doesn't at this stage, unfortunately. Have there been any major changes and additions to the combat system? New arts, mechanics, has AI improved for certain characters? So I sort of touched on this a little bit earlier. It's hard to, I can't really confirm or deny. There have maybe been some tweaks here and there, but in general, it seems like most things, at least in the base game, not in Future Connected, because Future Connected is all new, but the AI and that sort of thing appear to be pretty much the same, or they have at least the same priorities. There might have been some tweaks or some optimizations here and there, because when you're rebuilding something in a new engine, as they've done for Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, sometimes they might pick up a little mistake or a number or something like that. But I think it's probably about the same, even though I have found both Shala and Melia usable to an extent. Milk Toast King, do unique monster respawn rates change to 100% after they're killed once, like in X, or are they still low like in the original? I doubt this will happen, but is Cool Off usable in chain attacks now? So Cool Off is not usable in chain attacks, unfortunately. I did check this a couple of different times, and as far as I can tell, unique monster respawn rates are still, I wouldn't say low, but they still appear to be a chance. Zero Taker ZX, how long is Future Connected? And the main story plus main story extras plus completionist. So I had a guesstimate of 10 to 15 hours for sort of the main story and maybe doing a couple of the optional parts. That sort of seems to be backed up by Takahashi, who recently came out and said the story portion of it will take 10 to 12 hours, with side content pushing that up to 20. So I imagine for a proper completionist, I imagine it might be just a little bit over 20, possibly in the sort of 20 to 25 range. And I think most people will do it in that sort of around the 15-hour mark, because it's kind of hard to avoid some of the side content, because it is actually very fun and very compelling. In terms of Nopon Spectres, which is one of a sort of half collectible, half combat thing, it's kind of cool. So I think most people will probably do the 15 to 20 hour range. I imagine most people will get it done in. Studio leaks. Did they add more weapons per character? Any change to gems? I don't not in the main game. I don't think. Obviously in Future Connected, all weapons and gear is new, but I don't think they've added any more weapons in the game. At least I haven't come across any new ones yet, and I don't believe there have been any changes to the gems either. Ken Legend, are the Future Connected outfits available in the main game, and how does the game run on handheld mode? I told you that that question gets asked a lot. So handheld mode we've already covered, it runs pretty well. Are the Future Connected outfits available in the main game? Yes, they are. So as you unlock them in Future Connected, so you do actually have to start up Future Connected and begin playing and collecting the outfits in Future Connected, but once they're collected in Future Connected, they'll also be available in the main game. They'll just be down the bottom in your regular list of outfits. Lazy Dildo. Is there auto battle like in Torna, auto usage skills and button press for chains? No, there's no auto battle. There are auto attacks because that's just the nature of the battle system, but there is no full auto battle for you in Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. There may be some other things that can minimize or help you interact with it less if you aren't enjoying it. There might be. If there is, I can't talk about that at the moment though. Can you turn off some of the quality of life changes, such as quest markers and compass guidance for those that don't want them, or the little exclamation marks that pop up on your action bar? So this one I was surprised to find that yes, you can turn off all of these things. So you can turn off quest markers, you can turn off the compass guidance, you can turn off the little exclamation marks on your abilities, which is sort of to alert you when's best to use them. So if you have an attack that does more damage from the back, a little exclamation mark will pop up on the skill when you're behind them, so you know when to use it. You can actually just turn that off, along with a whole bunch of other things. So you can turn on and off a whole bunch of the different notification options, and yeah, a lot of the new UI elements can be toggled on or off. Quog842, have you come across a think you can take me moment, or anything where a line triggers more than it should? No, I haven't come across anything specific like that, where that just keeps spamming the same line on top of each other over and over, but in general, the battle chatter in the original Xenoblade Chronicles is, I think most people would say, excessive. You do hear the characters talk quite a lot, but nothing on that level of just where it just keeps escalating. Think you can take me, won't forget me. Think you can take them, won't think you can take me. Like nothing like that. Yeah, at this stage. Morag23, do you now have graves after beating a unique monster like Xenoblade Chronicles 2? No, not that I've seen. I think it's still just a chance that they respawn. Is the combat as complex as Xenoblade 2? Because I don't understand what the arts represent on both sides of the screen, as well as the big one in the middle. I would say that it's hard to say. I don't think it's as complex. I think it's just complex in different ways. It does tend to get very busy once you unlock all the different mechanics. But as far as understanding what the arts on either side mean and what the middle one means, the game does a very good job at teaching you that stuff. And it's all it's customizable where you put the arts. And there are a bunch of new UI elements, which I talked about a little bit earlier, like the exclamation marks that tells you when's best to use a skill. All that's there to help make the learning curve for the combat a lot easier to handle. So I don't think it's as complex as Xenoblade 2, only because it helps you out a little bit more when you're learning it. Are there any major quality of life improvements, like a fast forward option? So there's no fast forward option, but there are a ton of quality of life improvements, which I've sort of already talked about, like just in terms of the UI elements to help you find quests, a full quest log, there's like story recaps, which you can bring up at any time, the map in general is better, the mini-map is better, the quest markers are better, there are like things in combat, like the exclamation marks, like the combat triggers, there are a lot of quality of life improvements that make this so much easier to play over the original. Like, as I said earlier, you'll still probably want to, if you want to do like 100% completionist run, you're probably still going to have the wiki up for some things, or at least some sort of guide next to you for some things. But in general, most people, if you want to do like most of what the game has to offer, you're just not going to need to have a wiki or a guide open next to you to play the game. Did they make gems distinguishable from other gems of the same color in the inventory so it's easier to tell them apart? Did they add any new or better sorting functions for gems? I think the gem system is relatively unchanged, as I've said a couple of times. I haven't had too much difficulty with it. It has been like a couple of years now since I touched the original Xenoblade Chronicles, so they might have added some more sorting functions, but I don't think so. Mr. Waffles42, can you use the whole party for Future Connected, or is it focused mainly on Shulk and Melia? So it's not just focused on Shulk and Melia, you also have new characters, which are 2 Nopons, and there are sort of some other things, like it's sort of a half collectible, half side content, half combat thing called the Nopon Spectres, and there are, various other additions and characters and that sort of thing in the Future Connected. The story, as far as I can tell so far, is focused on Shulk and Melia though, like the actual sort of driving force of the narrative. AX Revolution AI. I have the Wii version and have never played it. Should I skip to Switch or play the Wii version first? You should just play the Switch version. Honestly, it's called Definitive Edition for a reason, right? So not only does it have the whole new content with the Future Connected story, but it's just a whole lot easier and more fun to play, and it looks fantastic. Like I said this in my preview, but it's obviously running in a new iteration of the engine that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Torna were running in, but it looks better than both of them. Maybe not animation-wise, because a lot of the animations were brought over from the original Wii version, but in terms of like graphically and technically, the resolutions are higher, the frame rates are more solid, and it just looks fantastic. Pongu Pong, how does Shulk's Future Connected Monado open up? There was a few screenshots, so hopefully right now you should be looking on screen and seeing some kind of shot of it opening if I could get a good shot. I'm unsure if I will have been able to at time of recording, but if I do have a good shot or some video of that Monado opening up, you should be seeing it right now. Maxwell658, is there a way to disable the vision music when the future is changed during battle? Not that I have found. I don't think you can do anything to manipulate that. If you do change the future, it does just seem to change to that future changing track. But maybe it changes back to the original quicker. It's kind of hard to tell. Azure Tri-Edge, is there still an item limit on how much you can carry? I'm a hoarder in JRPGs and having to constantly inventory manage stresses me out in case I'm throwing away something I need. So it's yes and no. For collectibles, there are no limits at all, so you can just have as many collectibles as you want. Uncut gems, so ether stones, I believe the limit is 500. Cut gems and gear, so each individual piece of gear and each individual gem, I believe that for each slot is 450 each. So you can have 450 gems, 450 weapons, 450 chess pieces. So it shouldn't really become a problem, because I'm a little bit of a, in games like this, I tend to go around and collect a lot of stuff and try not to sell a lot of stuff either, because I'm also worried about accidentally throwing away stuff I need, and I have not come into a situation where I've got even close to the limit yet. Final Fantasy, will I finally find happiness if I play this? Haven't played XC2 or the original, thanks. Yeah, you'll probably find a hell of a lot of happiness. The game is fantastic. It's obviously a great place to start if you want to jump into Xenoblade Chronicles, so yeah, I recommend giving it a shot. Devil Fruits, do they have blades like XC2, like collectibles? So no, it's a totally different, blades are just a Xenoblade Chronicles 2 thing, but Future Connected, the Future Connected story, does have Nopon Spectres, which I've mentioned multiple times now already, but Nopon Spectres, I guess you could kind of think of them like blades, though they don't function like that. They don't function like blades, but they are sort of collectibles and an element that comes into play in battles as well. So there are definitely a lot of collectibles both in Future Connected and in the original base, though not specifically blades. And that's everything. At least, if your question didn't come up, it was either because I literally couldn't say anything about it, or it was impossible to answer, or it was just very similar to many other questions that were already answered in the video. If I didn't get to your question, just let me know in a comment down below. I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks for sending in your questions. It was a lot of fun to see what people are most excited about, and to hopefully give you the answers that you need. I'm very much looking forward to having my review ready, and I'll see you all soon.